Vulnerabilities in a Mixed Cloud On-Premise Environment. Today's presenters are Roger Nessier, Vice President, Client Management, Estuate, and Abhay Bhargav, Security Practice Leader. Roger has over 25 years of experience managing strategic accounts, solutioning, and delivering complex software products and services. Abhay leads Estuate's security practice, working with clients across multiple industry verticals like banking, software development, retail, e-commerce, government, insurance, healthcare, payments, etc. We will be emailing a link to the recorded webinar to all that registered. We're also going to be putting up the recording on Estuate's website within a couple of days, so please check back for that. Thank you, Roger and Abhay, for presenting. I'll turn the webinar over to you now.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that, Mike. Let's move to the next slide, please. So I want to just quickly cover the topics that we're going to review on this webinar. We're going to do a short introduction to Estuate and the work that we do and how security is a very important practice along the lines of other practice areas that we have at Estuate. Then we're going to talk a little bit about vulnerabilities in a mixed cloud on-premise environment. So we're going to delve deeper into what the cloud means when you bring it into an on-premise environment and how your security strategy needs to be updated to accommodate some of the new vulnerabilities that come into play when you mix the cloud with your on-premise environment. Then we're going to talk a little bit about our security offerings and capabilities around security advisory services, and talk to you also about a really exciting offer that we have, which is a free, no-risk security assessment, which will enable you to understand how vulnerable you are and whether there really is a need for the type of services that Estuate provide. Can we move to the next slide, please? So just a little bit about Estuate. We are based in Silicon Valley. We've been around for 9 years. We have about 300 employees, and about half of those employees are based in the U.S. Our management team has dozens and dozens of years' experience working with enterprise companies. Folks on our management team come from Oracle, come from companies that are steeped in knowledge of doing services and development work. We have 4 major practice areas. The first one is around big data, working with products like HP Vertica, Hadoop, Cassandra as examples, as well as business intelligence products. We also are doing an extensive amount of work in information lifecycle governance with a product called Optin from IBM. We're having great success with that. We've done hundreds of implementations of Optin around the world. We are working with Oracle technology and applications, and that would include Oracle-acquired products like PeopleSoft, like JD Edwards, Siebel, Hyperion. We're also working with Oracle Technologies database products like MySQL, Oracle Database, as well as Exadata. And lastly, we provide product engineering services, and that encompasses everything from product development to QA to testing, and that it would include security testing. The way that we've had such phenomenal success, for example, we grew 65% last year, is referral through our clients. We have 100% referenceability, and we have strong long-term relationships with our clients, and our motto is extreme service. So you'll find that because we're a small, privately held company, you'll find that we are very competitive in terms of how we price our services, and we're very, very responsive in terms of delivering those with the highest quality. So we have the agility of a startup. We have our employees, which have been with us. Many of them have been with us from day one. We have very low attrition. And we're able to work with companies of various sizes. We're working with companies like Bosch, Visa, Citibank, Chevron, as well as smaller companies as well, like Arena, for example, with companies like Hotwire, Expedia. some of the new startups, companies like Zora. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I talked a bit about our various service offerings, and for those offerings, we provide consulting. We can do on-site resourcing on a short-term or long-term basis. We can provide offshore resources. We can provide a mixed model of both onshore and offshore. But the security practice that we have falls under product engineering services, and that's what we're going to cover today. Next slide, please. So onto product engineering services, we focus on mobile development. We have a practice area around doing Android and iOS development. We do development for web applications, specifically applications that are going to be on the cloud, that are going to be multi-tenant applications. And in terms of technologies, we're very comfortable with all of the leading technologies and platforms, from Java to Microsoft, Oracle technologies, open source technologies as well. We're going to cover more detail around some of the capabilities we have around security testing, but just a kind of a quick overview on this slide is we do assessments, we do audits, penetration testing, we do training, vulnerability and social engineering assessments as well, and we can help you with compliance. Next slide, please. We also have a practice that's very successful around application integration. We've done over 150 successful projects in integration, integrating data as well as applications, integrating cloud-based products with on-premise products, integrating data from the cloud with on-premise data. And this entails cleansing of information, cleansing of data, getting data from multiple disparate sources that are stovepiped and bring them into a centralized repository. We also have expertise in various middleware products from IBM and from Oracle as examples to be able to connect the various data sources if it's required. Next slide, please. So around software engineering, as I mentioned on an earlier slide, we're doing everything from strategy and architecture to requirements management, product development, all the way into implementation and upgrades and support activities. And this is for a who's list of clients as well as smaller companies like Acton and Revitas as examples. But we're also working with big names like Cisco and Visa, Stanford University. Stanford is a great example where we have 24 resources working on behalf of Stanford for the past 7 years doing development in terms of student registration systems. SRI, where we've developed voice recognition software that's used on the iPhone. So those are just some examples of the work that we're doing around software product engineering. Next slide, please. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Abhay, who is our practice leader, and he's going to talk to you about vulnerabilities in a mixed cloud on-premise environment. Thank you. Abhay? Mike, are you still there?
Hey, Abhay? Yes, I'm still here. Abhay, are you there? Maybe he's having a little bit of trouble with his audio. Abhay, you might be on mute. You might have muted yourself. Roger, you're still there, right?
I'm still here. Looks like
I believe Abhay's having some technical difficulties here. To the attendees, while we Abhay, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. there was a slight technical glitch. So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Roger. Thanks for the introduction. Sorry for my slight technical glitch. Can we move to the next slide? I think the years 2012 and 2013 have been the year of attack in terms of cyber attacks, cloud application attacks, breaches all over the world. Now the numbers are here in front of you, and these numbers are only increasing. And one thing we can say for sure is that the attack landscape is becoming way more complex. Attackers are using far more sophisticated techniques, especially around cloud and cloud applications, in order to compromise cloud and on-premise environments. Next slide, please. One of the things that attackers are doing in mixed cloud environments is because they are targeting web applications. Now, in a web application environment, if an attacker attacks your web application, not only does the attacker gain access to the application, which is probably on the cloud, but through the application can also pivot his way into the internal network zone or inside the company's network, in which the attacker can gain way more elevated access to the company's critical information, assets, and data. And in a multi-tenant environment, especially in the cloud, this kind of an attack can be way more dangerous, because if one of the companies in that environment is attacked, the other customers on the same shared environment are also compromised or potentially compromised. Next slide, please. The thing with modern applications today is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to secure them, simply because there is so much complex functionality in cloud applications and Web 2.0 applications. First of all, we have a lot of AJAX and asynchronous functionality happening. So an application today, especially on the cloud, is making thousands of calls asynchronously over AJAX. Apart from that, applications are either using API or publishing API. Now, this is also creating a major security challenges for several companies, because if your API or the API you're using is compromised, then your application is potentially compromised. Then there is also the question of web services, which is almost always prevalent with cloud applications. When we're talking about web services and JSON, this is a very evolving area when it comes to security, because this is, developers mount their own web services, they write the entire stack. As a result, security issues around web services and JSON is pretty heavy. Apart from that, with today's applications, especially modern applications, we see a lot of business logic being moved to the client side. Now, this is because people want their applications to be more responsive, they want it mobile enabled, they want it to behave like a thick client app but on the web. So as a result, a lot of business logic is moved to the client side. We're talking a lot of third-party components, libraries, and code. And as a result, vulnerabilities might creep into the system, making it increasingly difficult to secure. Next slide, please. Once we talk about the challenges in securing cloud applications, we need to talk a little bit about attack possibilities. Now, classic injection attacks are still the most popular type of attack that attackers look for. Now, these attacks are when attackers try and inject data and gain access to backend systems like databases and file systems and operating systems. Now, these, while have been reducing, especially because a lot of frameworks come in with a lot of defenses against injection, they are still very popular. I still see about 30 to 40% of the applications getting compromised due to injection attacks. Today, in a modern cloud environment, we are talking a lot of attacks around things like cross-site scripting, authentication bypass, information leakage. Now, these kind of flaws are becoming more and more, and they're getting harder and harder to fix. Let's take an example of cross-site scripting. In cross-site scripting, the attacker injects scripts into your application which replace to your users, which could cause anything from a session hijack to a browser hook or something like that. Now, in such cases, cross-site scripting can be triggered from multiple calls in your application, could be calls that you don't know about really. So it's becoming increasingly harder to fix cross-site scripting and other cloud application-related issues in Web 2.0. Next slide, please. So let me just give you a quick story of a recent $40 million credit card breach that happened against a bank. Now, this is a leading bank in the EMEA region. Now, they were a classic mixed environment. They had some cloud services, and they also had a very large on-premise deployment. Now, their card management operations was managed by an independent services provider, who was a kind of like a cloud services provider for different banks. Now, what the attackers did was they compromised the service provider through a vulnerable web application, and using that access, they uploaded scripts stuck to the cryptographic systems inside the bank and increased limits on prepaid cards. Now, if any of you know prepaid cards, you would know that prepaid cards actually, there is no great amount of check and balance that is done on a prepaid card once it's issued. So once a prepaid card is issued, there is no great check and balance done by the bank. So what the attackers have done is they've specifically targeted prepaid card accounts, raised the limits of each prepaid card, and then cleaned the bank for almost $40 million in a single night. Now this was a major attack. Next slide, please. Now, apart from the challenges in mixed cloud environments, there is also the challenge of compliance. One of the most important compliance frameworks of today, that is PCI DSS, is becoming very important for several companies to adhere to. Apart from PCI, you have several other compliance standards like ISO 27001, HIPAA for different types of information and different industries. Apart from that, you also have several regulatory requirements. Now, this is going to be specifically a very important aspect of the cloud, simply because in a cloud environment, you have several regulatory and privacy requirements that need to be adhered to. So some of the practical solutions for companies to really counter the vulnerabilities in a cloud or a mixed environment is to first fix the lifecycle. Now, most of the times, whenever I've come across a vulnerable application or vulnerable cloud environment, it's simply because the company has not really given too much thought to the application development lifecycle. Now, security is an integral part of it, has to be fixed right at the beginning and throughout the lifecycle. Apart from that, another thing I've noticed is that security testing for several applications is not at the quality it ought to be. Now, security testing, especially with modern applications and cloud deployments, is way more complex than just running a few tools and getting some results and then feeling, that your application is safe. Now, security testing really has to be a lot more in detail. It has to focus on all the modern technologies like web services, if you're using REST or if you're using JSON and other types of services. This is becoming all the more critical, and it has to be done in a combination of both automated and manual testing. Apart from this, it's very important to get your application teams or your cloud deployment teams and your IT teams trained on modern cloud deployments and application security practices. Now, this is something that I find really lacking in several companies, simply because there's no great strategy from cloud security. So this is something that can be a very good start for companies to get in-depth training on how to deploy cloud apps or how to handle security in a mixed cloud environment. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you a brief bit about our security offerings around security advisory services. Next slide. Firstly, I think we have the web and mobile application security testing. Now, web and mobile applications is a very popular service offering of ours. We do vulnerability assessments, penetration testing around web and mobile applications. We also do infrastructure security testing and penetration testing as well. We handle compliance projects end-to-end. I'm talking PCI, ISO 27001 and other compliance projects. We handle secure SDLC consulting. We also do a lot of training. We have specific training programs around web application security, Android security, and compliance. And we do risk assessments and other security assessments. Next slide, please. Around web and mobile security services, we literally do pretty much anything there is to in terms of security. So we have we do a lot of penetration tests. We do at least 5 to 6 a week, which is quite a few tests running parallelly. And we are really platform agnostic because we work on multiple platforms. So our expertise in terms of web and mobile is really, really high. We have multiple engagement models. We also do things like static code reviews for security itself. Next slide. So we've engaged with several companies, most companies that we work with have found tremendous value from our services, especially around web application vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. Now, this has really given tremendous benefits to our clients, simply because for them, security is mostly a business issue, and if we are able to fix security comprehensively across their lifecycle, especially for their web applications, we're providing immense value in terms of their customers and their reputation in the market. Next slide, please. Apart from that, we have a barrage of infrastructure security services. We do pretty much anything around infrastructure security, especially with modern ERP deployments as well. We do network security architecture reviews, we do penetration testing, and we do audits around infrastructure security. Next slide, please. We've worked with several companies in terms of infrastructure security services. We work with manufacturing companies, we work with banking, we work with insurance. So we have a great deal of expertise that we can bring in and provide a great deal of value to any company, I mean large or small, for infrastructure security. So this is one of the case studies that we have where we work with a large manufacturing company, especially around their SAP deployment. Now SAP can be a very, very complex application to do security testing for, but we have actually done extensive security testing around SAP, and their management has been more than happy to see the results coming out of our tests, and they've actually been fixing it through and through. Next slide, please. Around compliance, we take on end-to-end compliance projects. We have a great deal of expertise around PCI DSS and PADSS. PCI just recently released version 3.0, so measures have been getting quite stringent in terms of PCI version 3.0. Apart from that, we handle compliance projects other than that as well, from SOX, HIPAA, high-tech, and other regulatory requirements that clients may have. Next slide. So we've engaged with several banks. In fact, one of the banks that we have engaged with is actually a payment services provider, and we had them getting PCI compliant by taking on their entire PCI compliance project, end-to-end delivery of PCI compliance within 6 months. Next slide. Around this, we have a lot of other security services around risk and governance. We have something called an information security health check. Now, this is very interesting for companies that are already somewhat mature in their security lifecycle. Now, if they want to see how much better they can get in terms of information security, we do something called an information security health check, where we focus around all holistic areas of security, especially application security or operating system security, security policies, risk management, governance. All these areas are taken into consideration, and then we provide a comprehensive health check report. Now, this report details, of course, the current implementation and what a company in their business vertical should be doing apart from the existing security framework that they have, also providing a great deal of inputs for improvement of their security processes. We do security risk assessments. Now, risk assessments are extremely important for a company that is interested in pursuing security as a very holistic and structured framework. We do it around multiple guidelines and standards like NIST SP 830, the Octave standard, and FRAP, and ISO 31000, and so on and so forth. Apart from that, we also do a lot of information security management, and we do a lot of policies and procedures for companies that are interested in revamping their security framework in terms of policies and procedures. Next slide. We have a very active training wing. This has become an extremely satisfying and gratifying side of our work in security. We do a lot of training workshops. One of our most popular ones is the Certified Web Application Security Professional, where we have hands-on programs for companies where their developers and architects can learn about web application security, where we cover these kind of training programs in terms of cloud security, in terms of web application security. Now, these programs are extremely popular, and a lot of developers, architects take a great deal back to their jobs from these training programs. We also do training around Android security. Android is an extremely popular mobile platform, and security around this platform is getting increasingly important. So Android security expertise is something that we provide. We also do several programs around compliance. Now, PCI DSS is something that many companies are interested, but they're not sure about how to approach. So this is something that we provide a great deal of expertise with. Next slide. This is a case study of one of the banks that engaged us for the Certified Web Application Security Program. Now, our objective in this case was to train their developers, their architects, as well as their IT security team on application security. Now, this was very well received because later on when we spoke to the bank's Chief Information Security Officer, he mentioned that their developers had immediately started using all that training, all that knowledge that they had into the projects, and they had seen a significant reduction in security bugs in their applications from that point onwards. Next slide, please. So with that, I'll hand it over back to Roger. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Abhay. It was very informative. So for the next slide, if I move to slide 27, please, I want to cover our free no-risk security assessment. And what we're doing here is we're offering at no cost to our customers, to folks on this webinar, an initial security diagnostic testing on your application, your website, and when we undertake that testing, we find that no vulnerabilities are found, we will submit a report of the test, and there will be no cost to you. If we do find some vulnerabilities, we'll notify you what those vulnerabilities are, and we'll discuss with you what kind of further level, deep level testing that we can do on a chargeable basis that will help you protect your application or your website from hackers. So this is, as I said, no risk, and I think this is a very exciting offer that we're providing, and we're very happy to present that to you. Can we move to the next slide, please? So I just want to kind of recap a little bit about Estuate, and I talked about these capabilities at the beginning, but this is just kind of a recap of why we've been so successful as a company. One is our extreme service culture. So what that means is that we're very responsive, we move very quickly, and you'll find that we can provide high-quality resources at a very, very reasonable cost, and with very little red tape in terms of getting SOWs signed and contracts organized. We have a very experienced delivery team. We have very good process methodology and accountability around deliverables. As I mentioned, we're 100% referenceable, so we pride ourselves on high customer satisfaction. And lastly, we're very flexible. We've partnered with very large organizations as well as very small organizations, so we can be your partner, and we look to have long-term relationships with our clients. So this concludes this portion of the webinar, and I will now turn it over to Mike for the Q&A portion. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roger and Abhay, for presenting. We're going to open up the Q&A session right now. To the attendees, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the questions area of GoToWebinar, and we'll get them answered. Here's our first question. How is cloud security different from on-premise security?
Okay. Cloud security is quite different from on-premise security. There are some perspectives that I can offer. One thing is that cloud security, first of all, it's probably in a shared environment where there are multiple customers on the same infrastructure or the same stack. Now, this is very different from on-premise security, even virtualized, because the challenges are different. You would be securing it in your environment, whereas you would have to deal with a different kind of security on the cloud, especially around applications and stuff like that. Whereas in an on-premise environment, not only dealing not only are you dealing with the applications itself, but you're also dealing with the infrastructure security aspect as well. So it's quite different, both. I mean, it depends on what kind of a cloud environment you're talking about, but they can be very different in terms of virtualization, encryption, monitoring, different kinds of treatments in terms of security.
Okay, great. Thank you, Abhay. Does big data pose any security challenge? And if it does, what are these security challenges?
Yes, definitely. I mean, any data does pose major security challenges. Big data, of course, does, because we are talking about processing large volumes of enterprise data that is extremely significant. Now, in terms of big data, we're talking about collation of large data sets in a single data source or data point. So this can pose several security challenges, especially around data availability itself or confidentiality of certain data sets, especially if you're dealing with financial information or credit card data or any other sensitive data like personal data. So we are still talking about the same kind of threats that affect other data sources, but in a larger scale, because you're dealing with big data which collates large data sets.
Okay, thank you, Abhay. Once threats are identified by Estuate, how do we know this information won't get into the wrong hands?
I can answer that question. So we have internally we have very strong security practices. All of our employees sign confidentiality agreements. In many cases, our customers ask that we sign non-compete agreements with certain named clients. We do that. We have very strong physical and technical security in place as well. And we go through very, very extensive background screening of all our employees to ensure that that there's nothing in their background that would make us feel like they're going to do anything that is not above board.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roger. Next question, if Estuate finds security weaknesses, isn't it too late? Doesn't that mean a complete redesign?
I'll answer that question. I think, no, not really. It's not always a case of a redesign. Now, application vulnerabilities can have different dimensions to it. Now, in some cases, or in most cases that for applications that I have worked with, it does not require an extensive redesign, but yes, if vulnerabilities are really significant and across the application, yes, that might mean redesign. But in many cases, it can be fixed with application of specific efforts in specific areas around the application, but doesn't normally mean a complete redesign at all.
Okay, thank you, Abhay. Next question, short of shutting down the app or website, if a breach has been discovered, is there a quick fix to ensure no further information is lost?
Yes, definitely. Now, this really depends on, again, multiple variables here, especially around monitoring. Now, if a company is able to identify a breach either in progress or that has taken place, there needs to be a standard process of incident management that kicks in. And this has to be, again, planned by the company as well. Now, in such cases, there are a lot of considerations to take. First of all, the situation has to be restored to normalcy. So any kind of the web application has to be restored to normalcy, probably with a web application firewall to ensure that further attacks don't take place. Apart from that, I mean, we should hope that you have a complete backup till the latest point in time. So this would ensure that you don't lose any data in the bargain. Apart from that, there are multiple other things that need to be done. A root cause analysis needs to be done as to how the attackers actually compromised the web application. Now, recently, I was involved in a forensic investigation where attackers had compromised this website, and the site owners didn't have a clue as to what to do about it. Now, in such cases, organizations have to prepare for incidents and have to have a strategy to manage security incidents like this.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. What tools monitoring do you recommend to sniff out attempts to penetrate apps or websites?
Okay, there can be multiple tools, especially around web applications. I would suggest putting in a web application firewall, if possible, around websites to ensure that the web traffic to a certain extent is filtered. But apart from that, you have several tools like intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems that can also do that can give you visibility into web application attacks. Apart from that, your application itself, if it can provide intelligible logs as to saying that, you know, these kind of database queries have come in, or this kind of requests have come in, and these look suspicious, then that would be really great as well, especially around applications, because other than that, there is it's very difficult to gain any other visibility into the application other than doing all of these things.
Okay, great. Thank you, Abhay. Looks like we don't have any more questions. Now, if the attendees have any questions after the webinar or comments or feedback, feel free to reach out to Roger. His contact information is there on the screen, either by email or directly by phone number. Okay, great. Thank you, Abhay and Roger, for presenting today, and thank you for the attendees for coming. Like I said before we got started here, that we've recorded the webinar, and we'll have it up on Estuate's website within the next couple of days, and we'll be sending it out as well. Okay, thank you, Abhay and Roger. Roger, why don't I leave the last word with you?
Thanks very much, Mike. So, yeah, I appreciate everybody's time, and do want to emphasize the no-risk assessment that we offer. Please take us up on that offer, and we look forward to working with every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.